It is a very, very good sight. You get what you pay for, and you're going to buy in at that level of sight, and you won't really need to upgrade.
I'm Max. I'm Patch. Here we have like a 0 stop. Okay, so using use gun 1, go down.
Where we size them up, it's called softer sausage.
Today we're going to be talking to you about the HIKMICRO ALPEX 4K night vision optic.
Pretty cool optic. Got sent it by our friends at Optics Warehouse, and here's what's in the box.
Inside the box there's like a soft carry case, okay, with an interesting textured handle. Pull that out, and inside we have the actual compartment for the optic. We have then a mesh compartment which has a zip, and in there we have a battery charger, we have a battery in a little battery case. We've got the user guide, and we've got cables and some other little bits.
What do you think of it straight out of the box?
Yeah, so straight out of the box, I mean, it's a nice little quality package. That it's weird, like the little soft case, the hand on there is like a really interesting texture. Like, I don't know, sort of maybe feel weird.
Nice and ribbed.
Nice and ribbed. No, seriously though, it's a nice package, nice quality feel. You spent a lot of money on this thing, so you'd expect it to be good, and it is.
Yeah. What does it retail at?
So
it kind of varies, but anywhere from sort of 800, 850, maybe £900.
So it is higher than your budget day-night optic. It is.
And you can tell with like the use of it. And so you can use it in day mode, you can use it in night mode. Yep. The day sight is very clear, which is really nice. There's a laser rangefinder capability in there, and then that ties in with a ballistic chip inside, so you can put your gun profile data inside, and then you can range it, and it will tell you exactly where to aim and then engage it. So
it's a cheat code, really.
It is a good little setup, and that's what you're paying for with that money, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think using it at night as well, so on the flip side, I do think it's probably the best night optic on the market, with a good flood on top. It doesn't come with a flood, or an IR torch, sorry. And you'll need to purchase that separately, but with a good flood on top, I do think it is pretty unmatched. As far as daytime goes, personally, I'm not really a fan of a digital scope, just because when you're zooming into pixels, not an actual ocular image. You're zooming into pixels, and that, for me, doesn't do it. However, for the money, it's good for what it does.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
And even though you talk about the pixels there, it doesn't really become apparent until you zoom in, because it can zoom up to 28 times, which obviously is a digital zoom, not an ocular zoom. So like you said, you are enlarging pixels, you're not making the image necessarily bigger. And then that is, when you're on that big magnification, is when you see those pixels. But if you're not, I mean, we were shooting the other day on around anywhere from 5 to say 12 times, or whatever it was around that area.
It was brilliant.
It was pretty good.
It was pretty good. Yeah, I have enjoyed using it, really enjoyed using it. Like I said, we've got some pros and cons points which we'll run through now. So one of the pros that I'd like to talk about really is being able to pick out a rabbit at 700 metres in the night. Obviously with a good IR torch on top, but yeah, 700 metres I was able to laser it, go an accurate distance, and I could clearly see that it was a rabbit.
Yeah.
Which, as far as night scopes go, that's fantastic.
700 metres is a long old way to be able to see a rabbit.
Yeah, not that I was shooting that, but yeah, absolutely. It's the capability of the product is fantastic.
Yeah,
it is really, really good. Another feature I do like, we touched about on a minute ago, is a ballistic feature.
Yeah.
Really, really easy and user friendly to set up, I do find. And there is enough how-tos out there. If you don't know, you can get to know very quickly. I do think it's very user-friendly as a whole scope, as a digital scope comes.
Yeah, I think the main sort of selling point, or at least that HIKMICRO have been pushing, is the whole one-shot zero piece. I mean, zeroing off of one shot is contested anyway. However, for what they really mean is a very easy zeroing process, and it literally is. I mean, we just zeroed off of a steel target just as like let's give it a go, and it's a simple case of just freeze it, move it on, and then reshoot, and it is a very nice and user-friendly system.
If you are zeroing off a one-shot zero, it's not going to be deadly accurate, because you need the data pointer, and I just want to stress that. We're not saying zero for one-shot zero. HIK are saying you can, which you can, it's just not as finite as you can be. So another good thing I really like about Max is the like accessibility and usability of the buttons. So like magnification, for instance, if you have to zoom in quickly to ID a target or whatever, it's just a case of twisting the top turret. And like you said before, it goes into 28 times zoom. Yeah, that is mega far. And as much as I've said, I don't really like zooming into pixels, it's still clear. You can still pick it out. It's just not as crisp and clear as an actual scope. And then lastly, a point I would like to say is the buttons and the dexterity on top. It's easy to pick out which button's which. I know sometimes I'm foul of it, as if buttons all feel the same, I just end up button mashing, and then you're lost in the scope. But there is clear denotions on the buttons what each button does, and they're silent. So when we're moving around at night, you can't hear us operating. Yeah,
and one of those buttons is you have a capture, so you can hold it and it films for as long as you want to film, and then or you can just click it and it'll capture. But also what I realised is every shot it will take like a 20-second grab, and it's not necessarily shots. If you're like walking around with it and you bang it and it's on, it sometimes thinks that's a shot, and you can just plug in with the USB-C and upload all of it onto your computer, or you can use the HIKMICRO app, and then you can drag everything off there. So any shots, even if you didn't click capture, you will still have that shot data, which is quite a nice feature.
It's handy, yeah. Especially like you say, if you're in the moment in the stalk, you're getting right up to that final fire position, and you forget to capture it. They'll do it all for you. That's pretty cool.
Which I think is pretty smart. Back on the zero as well, you can actually zero it using the HIKMICRO app, which I haven't done it, but it says you can do it on their online. You can basically connect up, you can freeze it, and you can adjust that zero on the app, which is pretty interesting.
That's wild. Like I said, like there is a huge list of the pros there. And we have tested. We've had it for about a month now, just over a month, maybe 6 weeks. And it's been out in the field most weeks. It's been on the range. We've used it just messing around, and it is a very, very good sight. You're going to buy in at that level of sight, and you won't really need to upgrade unless you go strictly thermal or strictly night optic. It's good that it does the both.
So one thing I'm not that a big fan of is the LRF on top of the optic itself, rather than being integrated into the objective lens like some of the higher end still or newer. Just means that when you mount a torch, like an IR torch, you either have to get like a really big bracket, so then your rifle ends up being like this, or having it offset and stuff, and that's a bit of a frustration.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They could have mounted it on the side really rather than the top, but I feel that frustration. With the LRF being on top of the sight, with it being sort of elevated above the reticle, when you are zoomed in, the box that you put onto the target is sort of high left, sort of 10 o'clock position. And if you're like at the higher magnifications, you lose it in the scope, so you have to actually dial right back out to then get that box on. And it's also quite a way off as well, so I've found that when I am aiming the reticle, you're almost aiming what feels unnaturally down. I guess with sort of later iterations of this sight, or if guys upgraded it, it comes in line and stuff like that, which will be a pretty cool feature if they do bring that into the next sort of upgrade. Not sure if they are, but it'd be cool if they do.
Yeah, I mean exactly that. So the Stella has it in the actual ocular. So there are sites out there that have that in line, and it just means, like you said, that box, that lasing box that you're going to use to actually LRF the target is just a little bit higher than the crosshairs after you've zeroed. But like you said, on this one, you zoom in. If you want to move on to something else to laser it, you've got to go, I've got to zoom out, laser it, and I can zoom back, and it just adds time.
So another thing is more reticle choice. There's very simple reticles, crosses, dots, but there's no denotion left and right on the axis for any mill holds. So if you're having to shoot in sort of slightly windy, especially with 2.2, you're sort of holding into nowhere and sending it, which is not ideal, as we all know. You want to be as accurate as you can. And if you're just holding along a stadia line with no sort of gratical intersections, it's just a lot of luck really. And I think that could be an easy fix with a software update or whatever. But especially with the amount of reticles on the market for glass optics, normal sort of optics, non-digital should I say, that would be a quite easy fix I think, and would make it a lot more saleable to not just your hunters, because then they could use it for more target shooting during the daytime, or so you can target different markets.
Yeah, just having graticals in a reticle makes it more useful. Exactly what we found. We're shooting we were at the 240 metre target with the 2.2 subsonics, and we were having to hold for wind, and because the ballistic reticle was like right down the bottom, so I had to zoom out anyway. And then you're kind of trying to work out where to hold for wind, and it was just kind of like a bang. I don't know. So some sort of graticals would help. A thing I found when I was mounting it, when I've been taking it off and putting it back on, is there's no real sort of flat surfaces and stuff. So, you know, we want to try and get things nice and aligned and stuff with the bore. It has inside like a cant level, but otherwise it's just trying to find sort of ways to fudge it, because you can't, say for example, plumb it, because it's digital optics. You can't plumb it with like a plumb line or anything like that, or you can, but not in a nice way. So yeah, a very small thing, but
yeah, if you can be precise, why not?
Exactly that. So another pro which I quite like is the fact that you can have no battery in there and you have an internal battery.
Okay.
So the fact that like you can go out and it's a good amount of times. Like the whole shooting we did the other day, that was all on the internal battery, and you can just plug it in with a USB and charge it. So I don't know, your HIKMICRO battery dies or whatever, you've still got internal, or you can just charge it up in your car when you're going somewhere and use it for a few hours, and then so that was quite a nice little con.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think using it at night, I do think it's probably the best night optic on the market. With a good flood on top, or an IR torch, sorry, it is pretty unmatched. As far as daytime goes, personally, I'm not really a fan of a digital scope, just because when you're zooming into pixels, not a photo, not an actual ocular image. You're zooming into pixels, and that, for me, doesn't do it. However, for the money, it's good for what it does.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and tuning into this HIKMICRO ALPEX 4K LRF review by myself and Max. We've used it for about 6 weeks now. We've got to continue to use it, and we'll keep updating you about how we feel about it, if it gets worse, if it gets better, whatever. You know, we'll be brutally honest and just tell you how it is. If you'd like to sort of get yourself one, please head over to Optics Warehouse and tell them that LRT sent you, and we'd appreciate it. See you on the next one, guys. Cheers.